Hey, good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And today, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a special guest for you? I want you to stop everything you're doing and share this out. Please share this out right now because the entire world needs to hear this story. I have the one and only Gene McGuire on. And Gene is a guy who spent nearly almost 35 years in prison for murder that he did not commit. A crime he did not commit. He served 35 years in prison. And we're going to hear his story. And I want you to share this out because this guy, when you wait till you meet him, he's humble, he's grateful, he's an amazing human being. And I want you to share this out so we can get everybody in the world to hear his message. So stay with us. I'll be right back with the one and only Gene McGuire. And we're back. Let me bring Gene on. Gene, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken. I am so excited about this. This is awesome.
I'm excited too, man. Like I feel like Oprah right now or something. I don't know. I feel like okay, and so I just can't wait to hear the whole story. I know you have a book. I've not read your book yet. I already told you it might be a minute before I do, but like Gene, I met you at Babe's Chicken House. Is that what it's called? Babe's Chicken House, right?
Babe's Chicken Dinner House. Yes.
I knew that. I knew
Yeah,
that. I've only eaten there like 30 times. But we just moved here to Texas in November and I was introduced to Babe's and I'm like, okay.
30 times since November. That's pretty good.
I'm convinced they're putting crack or something in the food. It's so good. I can't stop.
I'll tell you, man, you're not kidding. It's
If
so
I
good.
worked there, man, I'd be like, anyway. So you are the pastor, what's it, the chaplain for Babe's Chicken?
Yes, I'm one of 3 chaplains.
Okay.
We have a Spanish-speaking chaplain, and we have Chris Bear is the guy that introduced me to Paul about over 10 years ago, and we partner in serving the family, the customers, and the employees, and the vendors. So it's
Amazing.
Incredible.
So I was there. I think my very first visit to Babe's, and there's this book, your book. Look, Joe Ingram, my buddy.
Joe.
No,
Hey, Joe.
it's definitely not vegan. But it's good. Oh my, it's seriously like if you come to Dallas, you need to go to Babe's. It's just that it's unbelievable. Like it needs to be a staple of Dallas. But so I see this book on the counter and I didn't buy it at the time and I should have, but I didn't. But the manager came over. I said, I have a podcast I'd like to interview this guy on. It looks like an interesting story. And I think he gave me a card or something. And I'm like, normally people reach out to me, but okay, I'll reach out to him. And I never got around to it. We're at Babe's, I don't know, a month and a half ago. And all of us, me and Glenn Morshower and Jill, my wife, who's on here right now. So all of these people, we're all there. We're leaving. And I think something happened where you recognized Glenn or something. How did that even go down where we were talking to you? Diane?
Jack. Well, yeah, Diane. But her husband, he told me his name was Jack, but so I signed a book. I went and got a book out of my car and I signed it to him. And I thought we had a little conversation, like about 10 minutes. And I say, I want to give this guy my book. And then I signed it Jack, and I find out his real name is Jerry. He told me his name was Jack, man. So it's so funny. So I
It
walked
starts
out.
with a J. That's close enough.
No, I went and I looked for him, and you guys were just leaving, and I caught up with you in the kind of the courtroom there, court area outside,
Yeah.
and that's where we all met.
Nonetheless, I said, "Oh my gosh, I need to have you on my show." And you kind of
did.
step back a little bit. You're like, "What's wrong with you, you nut job?" And I did it just because I was like, "Wait a minute, this is the guy that wrote the book that I was." It just all clicked for me. It didn't click for you at the moment, so you probably thought I was
because
a little
yeah,
insane.
you're right. Yeah.
But so welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. Talk a little bit. I like to start with telling everybody where you were born and raised.
I was born and raised in New Jersey, Toms River area,
Okay.
and loved it. Loved Seaside Heights. Loved the bay, and loved that whole atmosphere down there. The roads were still dirt, and anyway, so I lived down there, and around 71, 72, we moved to Pennsylvania to a farm where my mom remarried a farmer, and
Wow.
and so he was a farmer. I grew up on a farm for the next, 6 years or so.
Wow.
Went to high
What
school and, up until my sophomore year.
was that, like Eastern PA, Western
Yep,
PA?
Northeast. Yeah, Northeast
Oh, okay.
Pennsylvania, a
Okay.
small town called Falls, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Uh, Everybody's like, "Where's that at?" And
Yeah.
I say Scranton, and they say, "Oh, from the show." I'm like, "Well, at least there's something there on the map, Scranton."
Right. Right. So you grew up in small town farming community.
Yeah.
I did. I can relate to that. In Ohio is kind of the same area. You went to school there,
Went to school.
elementary, middle school, high school.
Yeah, went to when I moved, I was like 6th grade or so, and so grew up
Oh.
playing sports and just building friendships, and just loved it. Loved that little community.
And did you graduate high school?
No, finished my sophomore year
Okay.
before the crime.
Yeah. And then so talk about, so I don't even need to ask you the question I ask everybody else is, did you go to college? At least at that time.
Right.
But talk about what happened, because your life shifted significantly in your late teens, I believe, right? How old
Yeah,
were you?
17. I just turned 17. Was just had a favorite cousin. Everybody has that favorite cousin that takes care of all the younger. And he was 24, and he came to my house for the weekend or for the week. And so hanging out there, and one night drinking, playing cards at the table. Parents went to bed. So drinking alcohol was an acceptable behavior in my family. Good times, we drank, bad times. So it was just something. But I was an athlete, so I kind of felt kind of like, well, I like to drink. I like to get, drunk, but I was an athlete too. So I was kind of torn, but I was out drinking, and my cousin decided he wanted to go shoot some pool that night. It was like 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night. And the conversation with an older stepbrother too, who drove us there. And so the conversation was like, "Hey, let's go shoot some pool." "Hey, I'm going." And then my mother yells from the other room, "No, you're too young. You can't go. Eugene, you have to stay. You can't go." And so I leaned into my cousin, who was our favorite cousin, my mom's favorite nephew. And
Yeah.
this guy would do anything in the world for our family. And I said, sweet talk my mom. And so we did. And out the door we went. I got him, my Aunt Mary. He's with me. We'll be back in a little while. We're shooting. Well, about 20 excuse me, 20 minutes at this little lakeside tavern in Lake Winola. My cousin decides that he's going to rob the bar. And little did I know,
Your favorite cousin.
yeah. Little
Wow.
did I know that there was a backstory to it, so I knew I wasn't going to do it. And my stepbrother, that wasn't what we would do or even think
Yeah.
of. He was from New Jersey. Here we are in Pennsylvania. And then so we leave and he's going to come back in and rob the bar. And in my mind, I'm thinking he's going to come out with some money, like kind of the movies, and a bag of money and let's go, let's go. And it didn't go down that way. And so we waited for him a minute or two, went in to look for him, and he had murdered the bartender owner. And, it was horrible. He had no right to take a life. And, I had no right to manipulate my way. And I was 17. I had no right to be at a bar drinking. And
Right.
so afterwards, took off with my cousin to New York. And I knew I was in trouble. I mean, I knew when sobered up, you're like, I knew I was in trouble. And I just thought about run. And I ran with my cousin. Well, all he did was use the money that he found, and he shot drugs, and he bought heroin and shot drugs up in shooting galleries up in Spanish Harlem. So I was like lost in the sauce, and I decided to turn myself in. I was arrested and charged. My cousin ran for another 10 days, and then he turned himself in. He took the case and said it was his idea and that I was along for the ride. But, I always, regret is, you can't really do a whole lot, but I wish that I had a backbone to say no. And that's why, wherever I speak, and especially the young kids, I wish I had a backbone to have said no or just leave and, not be part of that. I might not have been able to stop him, so I didn't either. But so
Wow.
I turned
So,
myself in. I was arrested and charged with murder.
so let me like you said you went back in to find your cousin. What was he doing? Like, had he
Well,
already committed the crime?
yeah, well, he was in the middle, so he went in, and we were waiting for him to come out, and like a minute or two, we heard some banging as we approached the front door, opened the front door, and he had stabbed the owner behind a counter and behind a bar.
My
He had
God.
killed the owner. I remember yelling
Wow.
stop, and but he didn't. He just he went crazy, and
Oh my God.
so but
Wow.
yeah.
How long were you on the run?
I was on the run for a day and a half or so.
Oh,
Yeah,
and you went back and turned
yeah,
yourself in.
we were up in New York and we were sleeping in these sleazy hotels, and I'm like, I should be at school or something. I just I knew I messed up, and more than that, it was just bad choice, bad decision, and a life was taken, and that's the major thing here was life was taken.
Yeah.
And I turned myself in, and I was arrested and charged by the state police, and placed in a juvenile center. And about 10 days later, my cousin decided he was going to turn himself in. And so he turned himself in, and they kept us separated, obviously, throughout the process. I was given a public defender, and the public defender, like 90 days into my arrest, he recommended that I plead guilty to murder, that I could be out in 10, 12 years on good behavior. And so I'm thinking, I can't imagine being 21, let alone 27. But I felt so bad. I really did feel guilty. I remember writing letters home, my mom and friends, high school friends. I had like 40 high school friends come to visit me at the juvenile center there in Luzerne
Wow.
County. And they said, Gene, we can't let them in. There's too many friends you have from high school. And man, I was like, man. So I
Wow.
was very, very remorseful, and I felt so bad, but um, I just
So they arrested you. They charged you with a murder,
they
which
charged me
is
with, open charge of murder and
wow.
robbery, forced a robbery, and and some other crimes, conspiracy.
Wow. Um, so here you are in this juvenile center at 17 years old. Did they try you as an adult?
Yes. Yeah, they certified in the process, they certified me as adult because of the seriousness. And then went to court. I entered a plea guilty, um, 90 days, 3 months in, and then I waited 6 months for sentencing. And when I was there the day before my 18th birthday, I was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. In my mind, I'm still thinking I'm going to do 10 years, you know. And then the
Wow.
rude awakening, the next day they took me to the state prison in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. It's a kind of youthful, adult, youthful.
On your birthday.
Yeah, the day, yeah, my March 9th, yeah. And in my book, I remember telling how I went in and they asked me what my birthday was, and I told March 9th, 1960, and the lady looked up from the medical department, where, the processing in, and the lady looked up and said, "Happy birthday." And I thought,
Oh,
wow, you know, um,
wow.
so yeah, I started my state correctional institution on my 18th birthday.
Good Lord, dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was.
So uh, oh, 18 years old, um, you had to, I mean, that's gotta be terrifying.
It was, and you put on this facade that you're kind of tough. No one's gonna mess with you. You hear all the stories. As I
Yeah.
was going through juvenile, the 9 months in juvie center, I heard stories about juvenile centers. They were like, I was like, oh my goodness, the rapes and the beat
Yeah.
downs and the gangs and all those things. And I was like, okay, so just kind of you kind of check out a little bit too. You numb yourself and you just kind of avoid the reality of that. But when I got to the prison, it is all true, and
Wow.
you have to fight. You fight or you take advantage of. So it wasn't
Wow.
long before I got in my first fights, and which I'm glad. I'm glad because I established myself pretty early there.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I had
So
a
you
guy.
won the fights.
Well, not all the my first fight, I had a guy call me gorgeous. He blew some kisses at me, and I had, I couldn't, like, still, it's hard to shave. I don't know. But I still try to shave and get a nice beard. I can't, but so I was kind of like, oh, I was like, he must be referring to someone else, and he did it a couple times. I kind of ignored it. And then finally he approached me, real close, and he said it, and I just slugged him. I just punched him, and I said, "It's on," and so his buddies came and they ganged up on me. They beat me down a little bit, and so but I walked away from it. I had some cuts, and I had a fractured jaw. I had two big gashes in my head where they hit me with something on a lock on a.
Dude, you say that so nonchalantly. I don't know if you realize that, but I've had a broken jaw and it hurts, man. I mean,
Wow.
it really, really
Well,
smarts.
yeah, it was a fracture because when I was getting my head stitched up at the medical department, um, I kept biting down. I kept hearing this crunch, and I was like, maybe they need to take a look. So they X-rayed and they said you have a hairline fracture, and so, but they
Wow.
stitched me up. They brought me back from the hospital and they put me in a hole. I was in solitary confinement for a month for punching the guy because they saw me punch him, and they asked me, "What did he say to you?" And I said, "He didn't say anything to me," because I wasn't gonna tell. I wasn't gonna be a rat, and because I have to live there, right? And I knew,
Right.
rule number one: don't tell, don't get in people's business. So I was like, no, and the security people are like, so you just punch people? I was like, yeah, I. So he said, we know he said something to you. We know he's putting pressure on you. What did And I was like, he didn't. He did nothing wrong. I punched him. So I
Wow.
did. I did 30 days in solitary, and when I got out, I was in the yard and his buddies come approaching me. So I stood up again. I was in the grass, sitting in the grass and hanging out with some guys. And I saw these guys approach me and I stood up ready to, ready to go at it again. And they shook my hand and he said, "You're a cool white boy. We won't have no problems again." So from that point on, I just, I had fights, but it wasn't of sexual nature or pressure. It was just over some stupid stuff,
Wow. Holy
territorial stuff.
mackerel, dude. I'm saying, I'm like, I just can't even, I'm like one of my favorite movies is Shawshank Redemption,
Yeah,
right? So I'm
yeah,
like, I'm picturing you and like, it's just unbelievable
yeah,
what you're talking about, man. It feels like you're telling me the script to a movie. It's unbelievable.
yeah,
So how was, I mean, gosh, you're 18 years old. You're like, I almost want to say your childhood, your late childhood, early
yeah,
adulthood was ripped right out of, from your grips. Where did things go from there? I mean, you established yourself, you said
yeah,
where
yeah.
did where
Well,
did it go from there?
the greatest mysteries, I guess, is the life inside a prison. Television embellishes it. Some of it's true, a lot of it is embellished. But so there's a routine. It's secured. School. It's mandatory school,
Oh, okay.
job. Finding work. There's everything from working in the kitchen to laundry to um, carpentry to plumbing. So
Yeah.
there's some office jobs, clerical stuff like that. So um, I get in, I start working and go to programs. I joined AA, NA, trying to figure out like why was I drinking so much or so often. I went to stress and anger, prison adjustment groups. I sat with psychologists trying to figure out how all my friends went on to college and played football and ran track or. And
Yeah.
here I am, and I made the choices I made, and I just trying to figure things out. And in about 6 years, here it is, 6 years later, I
Yeah.
like it gets old, it's like, oh man, this thing is old. You get depressed or you get mad, you get angry, and
Yeah.
and I kind of like pushed my family away. I pushed people away, and I started looking for something to mask the pain and shame and guilt. And I found it, and I made homemade wine, and I get some yeast from the kitchen and get some potatoes. All you need is a bucket and some sugar, and off you go. And 3 days later, you have some rot gut wine that gets you good and drunk. So
Oh
we did
my
that.
god.
So we were doing that. Wasn't every day, it wasn't every week, but we would do that. And then with that came along with some weed, smoking some weed and some hash, and then some pills. I
How do
had
you get that in prison?
through visits. Had some friends who were getting visits, and they had friends bringing the drugs in from anything
Wow.
from prescription meds like Valiums and painkillers. And so we would do a couple painkillers, a couple Valiums, and get high and hang out in the yard. And then it turned to me, for me, it turned to coke and meth and to a needle. And then I started shooting meth, which
In
I
prison.
yeah, I'd buy the syringe from the hospital. I'd get it from one of
What?
the orderlies, and they'd steal it. And so, but I just
Wow.
chasing a greater high,
Yeah.
trying to find a better way, a quicker way to mask,
And I don't even know if you know this, but I have 21 years sober. So I've been sober a long
awesome.
time,
Yeah,
by the
awesome.
grace of God. But so I can relate to a lot of what I always called it trying to fill the God hole, like
Yeah, well, that's it.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
But so you're like 24, 25 at this point. You said 6 years later, and and dude, you've got to be thinking, I'm in here forever to the end of my life. Like that's what the judge said, right? Like you're
yes,
there forever.
yeah,
How do you wake up at any given point in that journey and feel any sense of hope?
There's one. So when I got there, real quick, I've met other guys that are doing life, and they're like, "Young buck, how much time you doing?" And I was like, I'm doing life, but getting out 10. They said, "No, you're not getting out. There's no parole eligibility
Oh,
for lifers in Pennsylvania." And I was like, "Well," they said, "your attorney lied to you." So I called the attorney, and he gave me a reason why not to. He told me I'd get more time if I appealed. So in defeat, I hung up the phone and went back to my cell. There's one avenue. It's called commutation with the Board of Pardons and the governor. It's a plea of mercy. It's not a legal matter. It's a plea of mercy. It's based on merit. So you have to earn your way over the years, and through education, rehabilitation programs, remorse, where you go when you get out, your support, and you file these commutation petitions, and
right.
they vote on them, and it's a political scene. It's a very political, and that was the only hope for me. But it was hope. It was like a light, and that's what I started to work for. In part, it took me a couple years to get real serious, but and meeting the Lord along the way, some years later, that couple years later, that really changed the course of my life. So yeah, when I
Wow.
had about 9 years in, I had 9.5 years in, and the person who was bringing the drugs in each week got a random search out in the visiting house, and they got busted, arrested. So there was nothing in the institution. And I remember for like 2-3 weeks, just like, man, I wish I can get high. And people were asking me, "Hey, you got any weed? Hey, you got any pill?" I was like, "No, there's not." So at the same time, I was invited to a program. So they called it the program at the
Yeah.
church, and it was called Prison Invasion 86. That was the poster that was posted up on the bulletin board at the cell block. Prison Invasion, and it had pictures of worship teams and team challenge, I remember, and pastors and speakers. And I was invited to come over on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday morning, Friday night, Saturday. But here, what was interesting was there was about 30 or 40 churches in the Harrisburg area, in the Camp Hill area, had been praying for months and months, organizing this revival type invasion in the prison. And so they had permission,
Wow.
100 men had permission to come in. They wore the tether, wristband, and they were allowed to come into prison cell blocks, the kitchen. They were allowed to sit down with us. They were allowed in their yard. They were allowed to,
What?
shoot some hoops. And they were just sharing their testimonies. Like, this guy come up to me and said, "I was an alcoholic and Jesus set me free and I don't drink no more." And I was like, "Okay, that's cool." And then later I'd see him. He said, "Hey, my name is Bill, and I was an alcoholic, and I accepted Christ as my savior, and I don't drink no more." And I was like, "Well, why are you telling me? You know what? There's other guys. There's 2,700 inmates in here." He just,
Yeah.
yeah, like a laser beam on me. But that's what I needed to hear.
Right.
And he invited me over. So he said, "Come on over." So I went over on Friday night. And as I was sitting there, I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, like, you talk about movie scene, you walk into this prison chapel that fits like 250 guys packed, but there was like over 300, and it was wall to wall. And so I walk
Wow.
in, and there was a big gauntlet of men shaking hands, patting your back, welcoming you, and say, "Hey, Jesus loves you. We love you. We care about you." I never had another man tell me that they love me like in that way. My dad, he abdicated his responsibility. I was like 5, 6. He left, divorced, and
Wow.
so it was strange to hear another man say, "Hey, I love you," and
Yeah.
but so I went and grabbed a seat, and I sat down. I felt like a fish out of water. I was like, man, but something drew me there, and I heard the gospel, and it was really clear that Jesus died on the cross according to the scriptures, buried, he rose again 3 days later, according to the scriptures. He ascended into heaven. He's sent us the Holy Spirit to live a powerful life on earth, to
Yeah.
be a witness of what he
Yeah.
did, and to overcome things. And so I was like, did he do it for me? And he said, the pastor said, "Real men make commitments. Real men make commitments." And that's when it was like, man, he's talking right to me, because I kind of ducking behind people's heads because I thought I was
Right.
a pastor. Yeah. And so I don't make a commitment. I go back Saturday night, hear the same message, the gospel.
Yeah.
And now it's like really impacting me, hands sweating, stomach churning, kind of get nervous. And he said, real men make commitments. Well, that night I didn't make a commitment, but there was a time of fellowship where we were stuck. I said we were stuck in this prison chapel for an extra 20 minutes or so because the officers weren't ready to cover the walks for you to escort back to your cell. So we're kind of
Right.
stuck in there with all and these guys were coming up to me and asking me, hey, are you a Christian? Hey, do you know Jesus? And each time I said, no, I am not. And so anyway, I was kind of avoiding eye contact and this guy comes up behind me and says, have you made a commitment tonight? And I was like, man, now they're sneaking up on me. And so I said, no. And I'm looking at this guy and I said, are you a Christian? He said, yeah, I'm a Christian. I said, how long you known Jesus? He said, since I was 4 years old. He was from the outside community. He had the civilian clothing on. He had the tether and the name bag and name badge. And I said, you know Jesus since 4? He said, yeah, at 5, I knew God called me to be a missionary. It just blew me away. I was like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. When I heard that, I just like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. I don't know where I'm supposed to be, but I know getting high and putting a needle in my arm and, smoking and joking and fighting and stealing and all the other stuff that comes along with the lifestyle of drugs and hustling and lying, sneaking around. And so he gives me his card. He said, my name is Larry Titus. He's a pastor at Christ Community Church there in Camp Hill, right down the road. And he said, if you need anything, give me a call. So he leaves, I leave, and I don't get say, I go back Sunday morning. And when I heard the gospel that Jesus died, I was like, he did for me. He died for me, for my sins. And man, I was emotional. I was like broken, and I went up front and I didn't care about anything. I just needed to follow through. And I had no idea like where I was going or what, but I went up front to the altar and I just prayed the sinner prayer. I just asked Christ into my life. I said, I want you to be the Lord, my Savior, and forgive me for my sins. And he did. And I mean, I felt free. I felt like chains broke off me. And I go back to my cell and I'm reading my Bible all day up until like midnight. My eyes are burning. And as I was reading, I knew God loved me. I knew God forgave me. And I mean, I was just spent the next couple of days apologizing to people who I cussed out or just, mistreated. And for the next couple of days, I knew God forgave me. And I remember I remember just like getting on my knees, like, I even said, to the victim, and I know she's not here, but I even apologized to her and I started making phone calls to my family and just, I knew God forgave me and I just asked everybody to forgive me. And it just changed my life. And I just became a student of the word. And I contacted this guy, Larry Titus, and he would come in on Mondays, and whenever he taught his church on Sundays, he would come in on a Monday once a week or once a month. And he would just share those things with me. And I just started discipleship 101. So whatever he taught me, I would like really get it down to my heart. I'd memorize it, I'd practice it, and then I would teach other men. And I was developing a ministry while I was in prison.
I'm blown away right now. So did you ever make wine again?
No. No, I tell you what, man, I would not drink that wine today if it's the only thing. It's harsh.
I
It'll
can't even imagine.
get you drunk, but it's harsh.
Hey, you want to come over and have some potato wine?
It's like, yeah, like vodka or something, It's like,
Oh,
oh.
that just oh. So wow, man, I'm blown away. So you accepted Christ into your life, and how long had you been in when this all happened?
9.5 years. So it was in
Good grief.
1986, late
Wow.
the end December 86. Yeah.
So,
I was 20. Yeah, I
and
was 20.
things started changing for you though.
Yeah, the way, mainly the way I started treating people
Okay.
differently. I noticed right away. And I mean, the people I could not stand, I was actually walking up to them and talking to them. They're like, how your eyes are right now? That's how there was like, Gene never talks to me. And I'm like speaking to him. I'm polite. I'm how you
Wow.
doing? It's just,
Wow.
the love of God was just like for real, and so the
Yeah.
way I treated people in the way I acted, I stopped hurting myself by using. I just had no desire to get high, and my friends would like look at me. They're like, "What happened to you? Did you get brainwashed?" I said, "All I know is I accepted the Lord as my Savior, and I'm born again."
Wow.
So
Dude.
yeah.
So did you start like a ministry in prison, or what
Well,
happened? Where did
I
things
never
go?
intended to, just by reading the word and practicing the word and you sharing it with other people. Men, I said this last month I was speaking to a group of rehab guys, and I said, men are looking for the genuine. And if
Yeah.
you can be genuine, I don't care where you're at, people will
Yeah.
listen to you if you're authentic and genuine. And so I just felt like, there were two things that I want to be. I want to be authentic and I want to be genuine. And so I would just, study the Bible. And if I learned something, I'd share it with someone else. And then those guys would bring somebody else. And then next thing, like, hey, Gene, let's get together on the picnic table. And we want you to do a Bible study for us. And so that was
Yeah.
like every day and every week. And so I
But
just,
weren't there people? I mean, you're in prison. There had to be people in there that weren't buying it.
uh,
Like,
yeah, but they can't argue with something that's genuine and authentic. And I would tell these guys, I said, if you have to be authentic, and or else you're going to get mocked, you're going to get ridiculed, you're going to get
you're gonna get beat up.
yeah, well, you could get slid or something because Pete, there, but you will anyway, but not in the general way.
Yeah.
I remember getting surrounded by a group of guys because they didn't like what I had to say at a Bible study, and they surrounded me. I thought they were going to pummel me, and I said, hey, I'm just speaking the truth of the word. So, and it was,
Wow.
but
Wow. Okay. So that happened at 9.5 years in.
yes,
Um, you spent a lot more time in
right.
prison than 9.5 years.
Yeah, when I had 11, I filed my first commutation petition, and you fill out the petition, you get your letters, support, recommendations, home plans, jobs, and you submit it. And I got turned down, and 11 years. And I remember went back to my cell, and I remember the Holy Spirit reminded me of a scripture that I read in Thessalonians says, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you, concerning us." So giving thanks for the circumstance, I got denied. But the bigger picture is God's sovereign and God has my life. And every morning
Wow.
I would get up in the morning and I say, God, I want to do your will more than I want to do mine. And I want to be like Jesus. So that was really the gist of my prayer and my heart, and every morning that was the focus. I want to do your will, God. So I literally said, thank you. And when I said thank you, two things happened that I can really, share is that a very concrete. I felt like God drew close to me because he loves a grateful heart. And the other
Yeah.
thing, it broke any self-pity or feeling sorry for myself that I got turned down. Woe is me. Because I already said thank you for turning me down because God, I know you got something better for me. There's something going on. Maybe the timing is wrong or whatever. And Larry Titus was a major, major mentor for me. And some of the gold nuggets he dropped along the way for me that I was able to pick up and carry. And like I said, whatever I learned from him, I was able to share with other people. So I got turned down
Uh,
at 11. I got turned down at 12 years. And I would literally go back to my cell and I would worship the Lord. And it was just something that it became a lifestyle. And I would tell other guys, I'd say, listen, guys are doing 5 to 10, and they get turned down at 5 years and they have to wait, 6 months. And I say, you better hurry up and say, God, thank you. He said, no, I'm not saying. I said, okay, and it's not going to go well with you for your soul if you're not going to draw close to the Lord. So that was my thing. I'm going to try to be and I'm not saying it was easy all the time. It wasn't,
It can't be. And there had to be people questioning your sanity.
Some
Like,
of
what
my
is
friends,
wrong with you, dude?
yeah, some of my friends were like, hey, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. I'm not saying thank you. I got turned down. I'm not saying thank you. I'm mad. My wife is waiting. My mother's waiting. My brother, whatever. So I said, hey, well, and so I went through prison riots. We went through some serious prison riots. Life still goes on in the prison. There's chaos, confusion, there's fights, there's killings, there's officers, they get beat and hurt, seriously hurt. We develop friendships, relationships with, my friend Orlando. He's in Philly. He did 24 years. He's out. He's doing exceptionally well. And we would cry together over death of moms and it's just the things that go on in a prison, when you develop relationships and friendships, we build friendships on today, not on who we were or what we did, but on, we're working together, we're struggling, we're doing the same thing. And so you build some good, close friendships and relationships, and, tragedies happen, bad things happen, good things happen, so along the way, we live our lives, the best you can. And so at 17, I got turned down and waited some more. So, some of the things that really helped me along the way was, I remained teachable and correctable, which is teachable, you always grow, and correctable, you get back on track. I learned to be a servant because Jesus, it says that though he was God in the flesh, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking on the very nature of a servant. So he had this attitude of a servant, the Son of God. So I was like, I want to be a servant. And I remember looking up this word and looking it up in the Bible dictionaries. And I thought, no, that's not what I want to be, a servant,
Right.
But I realized a servant serves at some things I learned. A servant serves at the discretion of another. A servant considers others more important than themselves, and the things like, man, and a servant has no rights, no entitlement mentality, which was a big thing for me, because even in prison, I found myself feeling entitled. I felt like, hey, I'm a Christian, I deserve this. And the Lord's like, you're a servant, you don't have no rights. So the Lord took me to the woodshed, as you might say, a couple times. So I was like, I remember these guys were, my buddy Richard laughs all the time when I tell him the story. I was laying in bed reading my Bible, and out on the range, the tier, these guys were playing football with a roll of toilet paper. And it was early Saturday morning, and they were just having a blast. And I was getting aggravated because they're making a lot of noise. They're in front of my cell, and they're screaming and yelling. They're having fun. And I was like getting miserable and mad. And as I was welling up out, and I feel the Lord say, Gene, keep your mouth shut. You have no rights. And I said, hey, guys, I said something. Hey, guys, I said, hold the noise down. I was like, like dad walked out, and they cussed me out, and they said, Gene, go back to your cell. Mind your own business. Go back. They cussed me out, and I go back and shut the door, and the Lord says, I told you.
I told you to keep it shut.
And I just, so I learned to be a servant, and I knew if you serve people, they'll listen to you.
Yeah.
So whether you're an officer, we'd pray with officers, we would lead the officers to the Lord. And one time we prayed with this one officer, and he said, Gene, I'll pray with you, but I have to keep my eyes open because of security. I'm the security. So I say, hey, keep your eyes open. I'll keep my eyes open too. Let's just pray.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
serving was a way of life. And that's what I would try to encourage the other guys that I was walking with. Let's just serve people, and let God add to the kingdom, And so when I had 24 years, I know I'm going fast track. There was a whole lot of years that go by, and there was no formula for me that I waited.
Right.
I think I just kind of waited to add more things to my resume.
Yeah.
Accomplishments. I was speaking to high school kids. They would bring high school kids into the prison, and
They would.
they would bring them in, yeah, and they'd say, Gene, we want you to come and talk to these kids about, the prison life and da da da. And I said, can I share my faith? He said, yeah, but you can't preach. I said, well, there's only reason I'm standing here in my right mind is because of my faith in God's word. Right. So I wasn't a preaching guy or anything, but I would let them know that the Lord changed my life. And I would teach classes on HIV prevention and hepatitis prevention and all the things that were, going on in a prison. We would teach law book literacy, and I was just very active in the prison, very active in the church.
Was that like a scared straight kind of thing with these kids?
No, what I was doing, because that scared straight was a failure. It really was. Yeah. It never, fear doesn't change any heart. But this was more, they would close the visiting room down on Wednesday, and they would bring the students in for an hour, and they'd fill up like about 100, 150 students would be in the visiting room area, and you come out and you get to talk to them. The officers would talk, the warden would talk, and then they would introduce me, and just a conversation, and but there was one kid, he was acting up the whole time, and I pulled him. I walked right over to him. I said, you think this is a joke? And I didn't get loud, but I got real serious. I got pretty close to him, and he simmered down a little bit, and everybody's eyes were like, but so I was very much involved in my community. The Lifers Association has an organization. It's a nonprofit. And we do try to do things to better our community and try to raise funds for women's resource and Big Brothers, Big Sisters. We do run-a-thons, and it's the life. I like to be able to write a book just on the life of the prison and what really goes on, because people don't really know. So 24, I filed again. I got turned down. And when I had 30 years, I filed again. 2.5 years later, I was turned down, my 5th time. And I remember I was really excited about a positive response. And of course, it came back no. And I said, is there anything I can do? They said, just maintain a good record. We'll see you in a couple of years. And I was leaving the office, and I was going back to my cell. The Lord said, I want you to get on your knees and thank me. And so I do. And when I was broke, I was crying. I had to pillow my face, and I was just, because I had my sister Mary was, she very supportive of her family, niece and nephew, brother-in-law Joe, and Larry had introduced me to dozens, literally dozens and dozens of people, his friends. And so I had a lot of support from my hometown friends, high school friends. And I was like, who do I tell first, that I got denied? And the Lord said, thank me. So I opened my mouth. I said, thank you for denying me. And this is what I felt in my heart, just like these words formed in my mind. I'm going to release you, but not based on your effort, not on what you've done or what you've accomplished and who you know. And I had a lot of support. I had no opposition. And so I was like, okay, Lord, what do I do now? And I stood up, and the Lord said, go back to serving. So when I go back to serving, 2 months later, I get mail call, but it's legal mail. And I never went back to court. So I had no rights to the court. You never appeal, you lose your rights. But this letter was from an attorney, Bradley Bridge from Philadelphia, and he was responding to a new Supreme Court ruling, Graham versus Florida, that said that juveniles who did not intend to kill, or no, should not be subject to life without parole, and they should be given a sentence that is parole eligible. It doesn't mean you're going to get out; it just means you should be given a chance as a juvenile. And it was all about MRIs and the brain development on how juveniles, when you ask your juvenile son and daughter, what were they thinking? They're like, I don't know. Well, it's true. You don't think consequently. So I filed it, and it was granted. My attorney or my judge granted a hearing, and it started a process which took 20 months in order to get back to April 3rd, a fast track. April 3rd of 2012, brought back into the same courtroom, sitting at the same table, different judge, different attorney, different lawyer, all of the people. But I shackled, orange jumpsuit, and chained, and the judge had vacated my life sentence, said it was illegal. But along the way, they discovered my original attorney had lied to me, pled me into a legal plea agreement, and I had an unconstitutional sentence. So that was along the way, but nothing was promised of my release, even to the day I walked into the courtroom, and I knew that they threw out the life sentence. So I was subject to a sentence, and I didn't know what they could give me. They can give me 40 years. They can give me 50 years. And I remember standing up, and I apologized. I thanked everybody, and I sat down. The judge said, I heard enough. And he said, the defendant, Gene McGuire, having served 34 years, 9 months, 15 days, has served his maximum sentence and is released effective this date.
What?
I was shackled. I was like crying, and
what?
Unbelievable. And everybody just applauded, just erupted in shouts and praise and hallelujahs and clapping. And I looked up, and I was thanking the judge. He walked off the bench, and the stenographer, they never closed the court. So they walked off, and the stenographer picks up her machine, and off she goes. And I'm just like crying, and I can hear the sheriff on the side telling my sister, hold on. And she goes, no, I waited long enough. So as my sister was trying to get to me, it got real quiet in the courtroom. Like, it seemed like just for a second, and someone yelled, release him from his chains. He's a free man. And the sheriffs come over there and shackle me, and my sister's crying, hugging me. We're smiling, looking at each other. It was so emotional. And so they gave me some clothes, and they said, my family member, somebody brought some clothes, and they said, Gene, go change. So, and he said, Mary, take your brother home. I was like, I felt like I was tripping, like, this for real? I wasn't doing drugs, but it was just it was so unbelievable that I heard those words, Mary, take your brother home. I mean,
So wait, well, hold. But you had I'm sure it was easy to walk away from, but you had a life and stuff back at the joint, right? Like,
I did. So I packed everything up. I had a keyboard. I was playing music, worship, and I had television and typewriter and sneakers and clothes. Some of the luxuries. So you take it and you put it in the property. And I told the property officer, I said, look, if I don't come back by any chance, I was thinking I was going to come back and have to do a couple years and then parole and
Yeah.
So I said, if they don't, can I give this to these individuals? And so he said, write their names and number and put a sticky on your piano or your keyboard. Yeah. I had a nice Yamaha and and sneakers, whatever, and we'll see that. So that's what all that stuff. Just left at the prison, and they dispersed that so I literally walked out with nothing.
So
photo albums. I walked out with my photo albums and my Bible, which I still have the Bible that I had in prison. So
wow, dude, that is unbelievable.
Yeah, this is the Bible I had, and I still so.
Wow. So oh my gosh, so many things. So you literally just leave the court a free man that day. Like, you just leave.
Yeah,
your sister takes you where to, like,
we went to a restaurant, a country club restaurant or something, and we all gathered, we ate, and about 20 people went with us. Everybody else said, "Hey, we'll catch up. Enjoy your family." So, but a year before, the plan was that I was going to come to Dallas, Texas. Larry Titus had moved to Dallas, Texas about 6 years prior my release, and we always kept in touch. And he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to come down to Dallas, work for you at the ministry." I said, "I want to meet a cheerleader and get married on the 50-yard line." He said, "Well, I can help you with a job."
A Dallas Cowboy cheerleader.
Yeah. So I've always been a Cowboy fan, and
Wow.
so he said, "Well, we can help you with the job and a home plan." So I came down, and about 3 weeks later, I came down, and I kind of pried my sister's fingers off my wrist, and my buddy Rob Meyer, he was like, "Mary, Gene is free. He can come and go at whatever he wants to do. He can come and go. He'll be back." But I knew my future was here in Dallas. I just felt like the Lord was setting me up down here. And, we go back to the Babes, and I realized while I was still incarcerated, Paul Vineyard was looking for chaplains for his company.
Who's Paul Vineyard?
He's the owner of Babes Chicken Dinner House.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And real quick, because I just need to do the math. So you served 34 years, 9 months, 15 days. So almost 35 years. So 35 and 18 is, I can't do math. It's 50. You were 52, 53.
I was 52 when I got out.
Wow. How long ago?
11 and a half years now. 2012. I was released in 2012.
So how long between your release, that magical day in court, and when you moved to Dallas?
About 3 weeks, maybe a little bit, 3 weeks or so. Yeah.
I'm getting out of Dodge. I'm out of here.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just seemed the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I was more than welcome. They kept saying, the court said, "You're more than welcome. This is your house. This is your home. This is your community. You're welcome." And I was more than welcome. And I've been back numerous times speaking up at the high school and community events and churches. I feel like, Tunkhannock, where I went to school, the town called Tunkhannock, Pennsylvania, very gracious, very loving people. And so
wow.
I came here and started life down here.
What about your cousin?
He's still incarcerated. Okay. He's kind of been a bad character throughout his years.
Have you witnessed to him? And
interesting. 6 months before my release, I was going back to court, and I happened to be transferred to his institution, he was close to where I grew up. I was 3 hours away from my family. So while I was there, we kind of sent messages and say, "Hey, I'm here for a brief period of time to go to court." And so he pursued the administration for us to meet. And they asked me, "Would you?" And I said, "Yeah." So they put me in a cage, and they put him in a cage next to me. And he apologized. He said, "I'm sorry for ruining your life." And I said, "You didn't ruin my life, because I didn't waste it." And I said, "I accepted the Lord." And
wow.
And he says, I've heard about you. I've written letters on your behalf, and I just feel bad that I hurt you. And so
hold it. You say that again. You said, "You didn't ruin my life because I didn't waste it."
Yeah, I gave my life to the Lord.
That is,
yeah,
so powerful. That one statement is so powerful.
Yeah. So we were able to get some closure there in a sense. And so they let us out these cages. They're about the size of a phone booth, right? And
oh my gosh,
there was security all around, because it's never happened before that two lifers, it was pending for me, but it just never happened. And so we gave each other a hug. He said, "I love you." I said, "I love you." And he kissed me on my cheek, and he went his way and I went mine. And 6 months later, 5 months later, I was released.
Hold up, just so people can. This I can't even.
Yeah.
Like I honestly, hold up your book if you would, please. I want everybody to see this. Unshackled, from ruin to redemption.
Yeah. There you go.
That is so that. Oh my gosh.
Right.
It's on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon. The paperback is on Amazon. The hardback is kind of exclusive through my website, GeneMcGuire.org. And
hold on, I'm gonna put that up. I'm gonna put that up on the screen. GeneMcGuire.org.
Yep. And if you're in a Dallas Fort Worth area, as you know, you can find the book at any of the Babes locations.
Yeah, I want a signed copy now, Gene. I'm changing my tune. I'm not buying your book on Amazon. I want a signed copy.
There you go. Okay.
This is the most amazing story, man. Oh my gosh. And it's not even it's real. It actually happened. Like, this is a real life thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is unbelievable. It's amazing.
I honestly, I'm not trying to be fake about it, but it's my life. You live it, and then when you start telling it to people, and you see the impact, it's made me know the Lord that much more and trust the Lord that much more, because you talk about all the things that He's done for you and the people that are involved, and the people are involved in my life because of the Lord. So it's just unbelievable.
So what, let me ask you this, because this, a lot of entrepreneurs watch this show and listen to the show on the podcast network. What I truly believe that, success and money are relatives. I really do, because I've been broken homeless and I've been wealthy, and broken homeless just is awful. It's absolutely awful. So what do you think holds people back in life from having it all? Success, freedom, joy, happiness, everything. I suspect I know what you're going to say, but I could be wrong. So tell me, what do you think stops people in life from having it all?
Oh my goodness. It may vary. I think lack of confidence. For me, my confidence skyrocketed when I got to meet the Lord and I began a relationship with the Lord in prison. And I can just tell you this, I was very outgoing. I'd write letters, I would try to meet people because I knew society was the right thing to do. To be, it was right to be in society, not prison, but it was where I was at. So I would always reach out. And I remember meeting this pastor and his elder probably the first time in a visiting room, wrote some letters and, hey, we'll come see you. Okay. So we're sitting there and I made a comment and I said, probably a half hour in, I said, I'm successful. And I remember the guy looked at me like, wait, what? Did you say you're successful? And I said,
Right.
yeah. And they said, how can you be, you're a life sentence inmate, you're in prison. How can you be successful? I said, because I know the Lord. And in Jeremiah chapter 9, it says that these things he delights in, that you know him, and that he is the God of loving kindness. And he doesn't put weight on the value of money or power and influence. He puts the weight on, do you know him? And that for me was the foundation in Jeremiah 29 and Jeremiah 9. So I remember like shaking. I was like, that's for real though. And I knew that my confidence and my purpose in life it was directly tied to the Lord and what he wanted to do in my life and how he wanted to do it. And so I, like you, we want everybody to know the Lord and have a relationship and to know him and his power. And it's not always, but I think having confidence in whatever you put your hand to do it, just go for it. But, knowing the Lord is absolutely a must.
Wow, man. I'm a little bit speechless here. I'm blown away by your story. It's incredible. And I hope that everybody on planet Earth gets to hear your message. What you just said a little bit ago, I don't even know if you realize how powerful the statement is. You didn't ruin my life because I didn't waste it. You could have been pissed off, and you could have been resentful. You could have wanted to punch him through the cage. You could have all the things. Like,
snap back or say some ugly stuff.
And you didn't. You took the highest road of all high roads. Like, that's just unbelievable.
I knew, I knew God's forgiveness in my life, and who am I not to forgive others? Because my sin against God, my offense, my transgression against God, if you think about it, is far greater than any against me. So that was the foundation of my life early on. That forgiveness is such a powerful tool that God has given us. He's taught us how to do it. Jesus taught us from the cross, and so it's not easy. It's not always easy. It could be difficult, but it's possible, and it's doable.
I remember my first sponsor in AA said to me, he said, who's the person that hurt you the most in life? And I told him, and he's like, okay, you have to pray for him. I said, you're out of your flipping mind, dude. I'll pray for him to burst into flames. What the hell's wrong with you? No, I'm not praying for him. He goes, well, then you're going to drink again. You'll probably die.
Sure.
I go, okay, well, let me think about it. I'll get back to you. And I remember praying for him the first night, and it was God bless, blah, boom, done. I'm not going into detail. Just do your thing. And I remember like 30 days later, man, I'm praying for this person. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. I felt it. I felt this, right? And you know what I'm talking about. You feel this release. It's like, oh my gosh, it's gone. What? How's that? So I believe it, man. Like everything you're talking about, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about one of the most powerful statements out of 550-ish interviews I've done. One of the most powerful statements ever is this, what my wife put up here. You didn't ruin my life because I didn't waste it. That is you owning everything and taking when you tell anybody you ruined my life, you literally are giving them your power. You're giving it away.
Great
when
point.
God said, no, hold on a minute. I gave you something. You get to use it. Dude, you're unbelievable. Thank you for being like, holy mackerel, man. Thank you. This is amazing.
You're welcome.
And your book just made it to the top of my reading list.
I love hanging out with you here and babes.
Yeah.
What a divine appointment that night when we met. I mean, who would have known? Who would have known?
Who would have known? And I'm a babes lifer. So like you'll see me there again. My wife put up a great comment there. Would have been so easy for you to be angry and bitter, especially because you literally had no role in the crime committed. Instead, you chose to follow Jesus and have faith in God. You are a great teacher.
Thank you,
Powerful.
Jill. Thank you, Jill.
Powerful. All right, Gene, I want to talk to you all day, but I don't think that either of our schedules will allow for that. But Listen, man, thank you
Sure.
so much for coming on and sharing your story, your testimony. And the best way for anybody to get in touch with you would be what? Through your website, GeneMcGuire.org.
Yes. Email me at gene4192@gmail. So
Wow, he just put it
yeah,
out there for the whole
yeah,
world.
gene4192. That was my institutional number at
No
gmail.com.
way.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it's funny. Someone asked me, he said, "Is there any significance to that 4192?" And I said, "Yeah, I was the 4,192nd inmate committed at that prison in 1978." He said, "I knew something was up with that."
Oh my gosh,
Anyway,
dude.
so it's like everything is redeemable but the devil. So, you know,
Ah, unbelievable. Just order. You have 2 books?
I have 2.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
so
Hold the other one up.
this one came out 2 years ago,
Hold on. Let me.
almost 2 years ago. It
Oh,
it talks about everything since my release.
that's the second
Yeah,
second book.
yeah,
Dude.
yeah,
Wow.
right.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Patricia Gigich, who's, by the way, that's somebody you need to know. She's a very her artwork hangs in the Vatican
What? Man,
and
I was
in the
wow.
Louvre. Like, she is a world famous artist. And in fact, she's in the top 10 artists of all time or something like that in the world. And she's a dear
Thank
friend of
you.
mine.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you
She's
for ordering
amazing.
my book. Thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna get her to come down and meet you in person. Dude, like, okay, anybody watching, here's some incentive to go to Babes. He's at Babes all the time. He's at Babes. He works there. He's the chaplain. He'll come around and pray for you and with you, and like,
Yeah.
like you got to come to Dallas though if you want to meet Gene.
Just
So,
hey, just get on a plane and come to Dallas.
that's right. That's right. I mean, there's a direct flight to Dallas from almost anywhere. So,
Yeah, yeah.
Gene, again, I could talk to you all day.
It's
Man,
been
thank
fun.
you.
It's been
God
real.
bless you for what you're doing. And wow,
Thank you,
it
Ken.
just
Yeah.
blows me away, man.
Be part of your fellowship here at Breakthrough Walls.
It's unbelievable. Thank you, everybody watching. Um, if you did not share this out, I believe there's still time for you to redeem yourself, and you can share this out. And, and
Don't waste this moment.
no, right. Preach. Come on, Gene. Preach. So listen, everybody, please share this out. The world needs to hear this story. So please share. And even if you shared it already, share it again.
Yeah,
Gene, stay with me. I'm going
I
to
will.
end the live stream, but I am so grateful for you coming on. And I really appreciate you, man. Like,
Yeah.
I love you, man. I feel it. Like, I mean that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, God gave me a friend in you for life, so
Definitely, man. Definitely. All right. Well, thank you. And we'll see all of you later. Have an awesome day. Gene, don't go away. I'll be right back.
I'll be here.
All right.